Hello and welcome to episode
My bad.
174.
Yo, all right, start over. My bad. I heard there's like a steady static and then it disappeared. So I was like,
Yeah,
hello?
I'm probably just going to leave this in
All right, right on.
just 'cause it's funny. So, hello and welcome to episode 174 of the Rollo and Slappy Show. Today is December 9th, 2019. I am Rollo McFlugel, and with me is Slappy Jones 2, and we are both from McFlugel.com. Show notes page for this episode will be McFlugel.com/174, where you will be able to find links to some of the stuff we talk about, as well as our sponsor, LibertyMugs.com, where we will take care of all of your shopping for Christmas needs. And you know what? You can even do Hanukkah shopping or Kwanzaa shopping if that's what you're doing. You can apply those Liberty Mugs to those holidays too. We do not discriminate holidays at LibertyMugs.com. And also be on the lookout for some Christmas discounts. They are on their way. So I'm going to hand it right over to Slappy, and he's going to introduce our episode topic.
Thanks, Rollo. Thanks, everyone, for listening today. We're going to talk about a couple things, a couple articles, at least, that we have in mind and see where it goes. But the first one's about a law in Pennsylvania.
Well, let's set it up a little bit.
Okay. Well, you set it up because you know the
Okay.
story. I just have the law here in front of me.
Well, I mean, set up not this this article, but why we're kind of talking about what we're doing. There's been a lot recently about like the red flag laws, talking about it. There's always like gun issues and everything, and people are always trying to take people's guns via the government, and so they're starting to roll out red flag laws in different states, and that's obviously bad. And we saw the thing with Whiskey Rebel, I believe that was is
Yeah.
correct. And it didn't seem like it was a red flag law. What was going on there? I don't really know. I don't really want to
see how that finished.
Yeah,
Like
and
how
I'm
it
not
came out.
I'm not interested in trying to guess what happened there, at least right now anyway. But there's a lot of other stuff that's going on that while we're all worried about these red flag laws, that there's other issues that are at play that will have the same effect. And whether it's other laws that take people's guns away from them, or just the way that the police and the courts kind of run their daily business, it's already happening. And they're not going to do it in a way that if they want to take people's guns away, they're not just going to pass a law and say, guns are illegal now and everyone's going to turn them in. They can't do that.
And they won't. And
right. And they're not that stupid. We can sit here and say that would be a terrible idea, and not just like because we understand economics. It's just like brutally obvious, and everyone in the government knows that.
And there can be politicians who say we're going to take their guns, and a bunch of morons in the crowd cheer for it, but it's not going to happen.
Right.
At least not that way.
That's just red meat for them. They know they're just getting their a candidate or something, or a politician just kind of rallying their base when they say that. But
however, that doesn't mean they won't take your guns.
Right. and they're not going to do it by taking it from the nice upstanding father of four in the nice house with the 2-car garage and who goes to all the PTA conference meetings and is well respected in the community. They're not going to go after that guy first. They're going to start taking guns from the people that are going to be difficult to defend. And so people are going to keep their mouth shut when that happens. And so it starts being normalized that way. It's like, well, we're not taking the guns because guns are bad. We're taking the guns because these people are bad, and we can't trust
guns in the hands of the wrong people and da-da-da.
Right.
Because I know, I'm sure you have. I've heard police officers say that the police force is a very pro-gun culture. I don't know if you've heard that. I have.
I've heard that.
And I've heard cops who, when I discuss these laws with them, will say something like we would never, like, they won't enforce it. Cops believe in the Second Amendment, and they're not going to enforce that law. However, they kind of enforce all of them. And I guess that's kind of what we're getting at in this episode is here's a law that they do enforce, at least a good, maybe
Depends on the location.
It's being enforced. Yeah, it is being enforced. And you don't hear a huge outcry, and you don't hear a lot of cops complaining about the law, at least not publicly.
Yeah. So you want to introduce
Sure.
this?
Yeah, it's called Domestic Violence and Firearms PA Act 79 that just went into effect in April 2019. And I guess there was already some kind of law on the books, but this made some changes to it. And essentially what it says is if you have a restraining order against you, or you've been accused of domestic abuse, do you have to be convicted?
You have to be convicted of domestic abuse or be the subject of a final restraining order.
Okay. They'll take your guns. And
they're supposed to do it within 24 hours.
Now you're required to hand them in within 24 hours, or they're required to get them within 24 hours, or
as far as I know, it's either or, but you can you can return it to like a licensed firearms dealer, your lawyer, or the police will come and take it.
Yeah, I'm looking at what I'm looking at here says there's the primary changes under Title 23 include, and there's a whole list of them, but one is family and friends. Friends and family members are no longer qualify as eligible safekeepers for firearm relinquishment. So I guess before you could store it at your friend's house or your family's house, now they actually take it. A defendant may request the return of firearms upon dismissal or expiration of the PFA, but must meet certain conditions. The plaintiff must be notified of the request. So anyway, the point is they're going to start taking guns from people who do certain things.
Yeah,
hard to defend these people's right to bear arms. Do you want to take the side of the wife beater?
Yeah, so there's an article that I have posted in the show notes page from the Philadelphia Inquirer from a few days ago, where it's kind of talking about how Philadelphia County is not doing a good job of enforcing this. They've only recovered guns from like 11% of the cases, and there's like just over 900, I think, of these gun cases or these domestic dispute violence cases that they are supposed to go collect the guns from. And they start the article out by talking about I think he's like 22 years old, but having issues at home, and his parents decide that they've just had enough of him and they kick him out. Apparently gets some sort of restraining order. So under this law, the police were supposed to go collect his gun. They never did. And then a few weeks later, he gets into some sort of argument or disagreement with his cousin, ends up shooting him in the neck. And so they're saying like, well, look at this. If we enforce the law, this shooting would have never happened. Yeah. So that's what's going to be difficult about laws like this. Is like what we said in the beginning. They're not just going to go after the captain of the football team and the head cheerleader type people. They're going to go after the people that we're going to look at them and say, these are nasty people. I don't want this guy. From everything I heard about this guy who shot his cousin, I don't want to be his friend. I don't want to be hanging around him. I wouldn't be comfortable with him. I may or may not even want him to really have a gun if I'm going to be around him. Consider that he's a hothead that's willing to use it, assuming that what was reported in the story is what happened. But people do bad stuff, so it's not like that doesn't happen. But does that mean that I want the government to be the ones that go and take his gun? Obviously we're anarchists here, so we don't think that they don't have the authority to do that. But even for someone who might say, yeah, you know what, he's a bad dude, and if it can kind of save a life, or at least save someone from being seriously injured, then maybe it's a good thing that these guys get their guns taken from them. But that's assuming that they're always going to be right. They're always going to get these cases correct. The courts are always going to decide, and that the people that they say are guilty are actually guilty, and they're never going to get anything wrong. that there's never going to be any nuance in any of these situations where even if someone is guilty, that they have there's a nuance in that case that might say, maybe they shouldn't have their gun away from them. So we know the government's track record on getting that stuff right. So that means that a lot of people in Pennsylvania, a lot of innocent people that even if you agree with the law, because they were convicted wrongly, don't really deserve to have their guns taken away from them under this law. Mm-hmm. So that really puts it in a weird situation. If you're in favor of this type stuff, that you're just kind of, it's the same thing with the death penalty. I mean, by being in favor of the death penalty, then you're accepting that innocent people are going to die. And it might be easy to just kind of say that, oh, well, I mean, I'm willing to take that risk. But what if you're on the short end of this stick?
What if something happens to the person whose gun was confiscated? Would the news report say this could have been prevented if that law wasn't enforced?
Right. Also, what happens, maybe in this domestic dispute case that people on the other side, on the victim side, are kind of pissed off at the person who was the abuser. And now they know that, this guy's not armed anymore. We can go pay him a visit. I mean, it creates a bad situation that way too. Mm-hmm. And I think that you can make that claim that might happen just as much as you could say, well, if we don't take the gun away, then he might go and shoot someone because he's a bad guy. But even outside of all of that, I don't really think it's a good argument to use that, because it's cherry picking. That was one. I don't know what the how many times that domestic abusers go out and just like shoot a random person. But that's not like this guy was got a restraining order and then went and shot the person that he had the restraining order against. It was someone completely different. So it doesn't really sound like, applying this law to this guy really makes that much sense. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That like, if people were going back and like shooting the people that they were abusing or got a restraining order from, then maybe you have an argument there or something to say, hey, take a look at this. But this example they gave isn't relevant to that. They're just saying that, all right, we need to take the guns out of people that we think are bad. We got to take guns out of their hands. Okay. I mean, where do you even draw the line there? It's so arbitrary. So did
they bring up any other examples? I mean, if they're saying there was 900 some and they've enforced it 11% of the time, was that about 100? Means there's 800 other people who didn't kill someone.
Not almost nine. Well, it was like 903. So there's like 900 people that apparently didn't kill anyone after this. I don't remember seeing any other examples in the article. I think there was an example of someone else, but I don't think that had anything to do with someone getting shot or something. But the other thing that stuck out to me was that this bill that was passed into law in Pennsylvania, this Act 79, they were so excited about it and are so disappointed now that it's not being enforced in Philadelphia as they wanted to, is that it was bipartisan.
No, of
Both
course.
sides agreed to do this. We're happy to do this. They're happy to say, hey, if you get convicted of a crime, even though we're going to maybe take steps to keep you isolated from the person that is your victim or potential victim, we're going to do you another one on top of that and disarm you.
Bipartisan.
It's also just in general, I don't want, I'm trying to, argue this by, I don't even want to say steel manning the other side, because it's not, because I don't think they have any sort of good case, but at least arguing from the point of someone who might be in favor of the government taking guns away for whatever reason. But it's just like, it doesn't necessarily logically follow that like you have to disarm someone because they had issues with another person. Like, why not just like assault? Like I went and got into a fight with someone, and it was my fault. So that probably makes me not the greatest guy in the world. And why not disarm me too?
Well,
Like,
that's probably what's next.
Right. But it's
you know,
it's just like it's piling on when it's not necessarily like. And then that's the other thing. Since when does being obviously, domestic abuse is an awful thing, but like, is it the case that if you commit domestic abuse that you're probably just gonna shoot the person, or that's like a
no,
I don't know that either, but it seems like there's a lot of people that do a lot of bad things, but that doesn't mean that the next thing they're going to do is murder.
Right.
So I think it's really just a way for them to, start confiscating guns in a way that makes people have to back down a little bit, because it is difficult to defend some of these people. Not even defend, but make the case that they shouldn't have their gun taken from them.
Right. Now, with this law, do you know, I mean, say, you were accused of domestic abuse and they didn't come get your gun in 24 hours. If now, say 3 weeks later, you're pulled over for speeding and you say, I have this, will it like show up that you're not supposed to have it and they'll confiscate it then?
I think it would. There's like some sort of database that, so I don't know if that.
So does that make you a criminal?
You
know what I mean? Like, are you now in illegal possession of a firearm that whatever
it's a misdemeanor. They have? If you don't return the gun in 24 hours, it's a misdemeanor.
Yeah. So it makes you a criminal. Again.
Right. Yep.
Whether you did anything with the gun or not.
Yeah. It does. Yeah. It's really not a good law. On the surface, you kind of people, I think, will look at it.
It's one of those like emotional
that makes
laws,
sense,
because they know no one's going to be like, well, no, these abusers need to have their firearms, and there's all this talk maybe it's been forever, but just seems more so recently in the last couple of years about confiscating guns, and some people get really fired up about it. And this is like maybe a way to try to appease them at some level. I don't know. I do think it's a way just to grab more guns, and they're just going to incrementally grab more guns. And people aren't really talking about this law much.
I didn't even know.
I was going to say I wasn't familiar with it until you brought it up, and I live in Pennsylvania.
And I just happened to see it because I follow the Inquirer on Twitter, and it was just an article that they just. They tweet their articles like anyone else would, and I just happened to see it. So you want to do the next kind of thing we have?
Yeah, I don't have the article up, but it was a case in Indiana.
Yeah, Derek Heuring. I think that's how I'm assuming.
Yeah, Herring. And so he was dealing meth, or so was he a pretty big meth dealer, or was he accused of anything else?
As far as I know, that they were no, because it was basically he got once they arrested him for meth, there were like 9 charges, and it was all just like doing meth 9 different ways. They charged him for like doing and selling meth
possession
9 ways.
With intent, manufacturing, and all this.
Actually, there were several, like double of the same, like possession of meth was 2 counts. Like they did it, and then also like selling meth was 2 different counts.
Yeah, on that case,
which is an issue, which is a problem in and of itself.
Right.
But
they charged the defendants in the case I was on with 9 counts of selling PCP because they had a confidential source go buy it 9 times.
Yeah. And it's the same thing that happened to Ross Ulbricht too. Yeah. They just piled on.
So, So they put a GPS tracker on him. And what was the point of that? Just to get probable cause to arrest him again?
Yeah, they wanted to. They got a tip, I believe, that he
So
was
somehow
doing
they
that.
were able to. I imagine you should probably need a warrant to put a GPS tracker on someone's car. So what gave them cause for that?
I think they did. They got a tip.
Okay.
They got a
And
tip.
you can do that on a tip?
I guess.
Excuse me.
But they got a tip and they got a warrant to put a GPS tracker on this guy's car.
So he finds the tracker and takes it off his car.
Presumably.
We assume, right?
Right.
Which then gave them probable cause to say he stole the GPS tracker.
Yes. Yeah. So and not only it stopped moving around, but it also stopped working. It was no longer receiving a signal. So at that they said, well, this gives us probable cause to say that he stole it, and so that allows us to have a warrant to go search his house. And also they observed the car in like a barn nearby. And so they got two warrants, one to search his house and the other to search the barn for the GPS unit. And then once they got into the house,
anything they happened to find while they're looking for this GPS
they
unit.
happened to find some meth, and they immediately got another search warrant to search the house for meth. And they found some other stuff.
That's
and so
incredible.
Yeah,
So,
my reaction was just like, wait a second. Like,
wow. So if you put a magnet on someone's car and then you went to check their car the next day and it wasn't there, you could accuse them of stealing it?
apparently. And well, here's what the Derek Euring, he tried to fight it because he said like what I thought and you thought and everyone listening thought, like, wait a second, that seems insane that that the GPS unit wasn't working anymore, that gave them probable cause that he stole it. So here's what the judges said in their opinion following in their opinion where they upheld the warrant and said that everything was good. Here, the affiant, Deputy Busing, stated he believed that the properties containing fruits, instrumentalities, and evidence of theft, quote, a person who knowingly or intentionally exerts unauthorized control over property of another person with intent to deprive the other person of any part of its value or use commits theft, end quote. So, okay. In addition, in the affidavit, Deputy Busing set forth the following facts in support of this belief. The device consistently provided signals from July 13th to July 19th. Updates ceased after July 20th at 7:34 p.m. A technician at U.S. Fleet Service told Detective Young the device, quote, could have been unplugged and plugged back in, end quote, to cause the lack of readings despite being fully charged. He observed the vehicle in the pole barn and believed that the barn was affecting satellite reception. The officers observed the vehicle outside the pole barn on July 30th, but later that day it had been moved to Hearing's residence. Detective Young again contacted U.S. Fleet Service and was informed the device was still not registering, although the vehicle was no longer in the barn and the device required a hard reset. The officers discovered the device was no longer on the vehicle, and in Deputy Busing's training and experience with these devices, he had, quote, never seen a device lose power for more than a couple of hours and that they had always come back on the system. He had been made aware that the device had become disengaged from a vehicle by accident, but was able to be located because the device was still giving readings by the satellite, end quote. That was saying that in his past experience that if it falls off, it should still be giving readings. But here's my big question. Like, if you find something attached to your car like that, does it say like property of the police?
I don't even know what they look like.
Apparently it's like 4 by 6 inches. So it's not tiny.
No.
And I would imagine they put it in like, but I don't know, if I found something that was, attached to my car like that, I'd probably get a little freaked out. I probably wouldn't want it on there anymore.
Right.
And how do you know that that's, I don't know. I have no idea. Does it say property of the police? You are being tracked and touching this constitutes, theft or some sort of violation of the law. But even regardless of that, I don't understand how, like, it not working right means that, oh, he stole it. And I don't know, like, they did find it.
Did they say where? Was it like in his bedroom drawer?
I think it was in the barn or something. Or they said I don't know. It was in the barn. I think they found it in the barn. But, like, even still, even if he just, like, if you find something and you're just like, oh, let me put this in this drawer over here, I don't know what it is. Like, that still doesn't mean you necessarily stole it.
Right.
Like, that's information that would be pretty nice to have.
Well, if it doesn't count as theft when it's on your car, why does it count as theft if you take it off the car?
I guess because they're saying it. Where's that line? Theft includes control over another person's property that deprives them of its any part of its value or use.
That is so bad.
Is it?
That you can put something on someone's car, and if they they stole it.
I thought you meant the definition of what.
Oh,
I'm
sure.
fine with your definition of theft.
But
I think that's fine. Sorry, no. I agree.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I guess the moral of the story is if you find a GPS tracker on your car, I don't know, drop it on the street. Don't keep it in your house.
Yeah, make sure it doesn't shut off. However you do that.
Yeah.
Just have it fall off somewhere.
Yeah.
So they can find it and not be in your possession. Yeah, it doesn't make sense because
like what was he supposed to do? Drive it to the police station and say, I found this on my car. I think this belongs to you.
I don't know.
Hey, how can you get it?
Maybe
because
they know it's on there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe just leave it there and use a different car or get around a different way. I don't know. But not everyone has access to multiple cars.
And it's also just like, it's just funny because if I did that to someone, like if I put a tracker on someone's car and they found it and took it off and did whatever they did with it, could I, like, if I went into this courtroom and claimed that he stole it from me, like, would that fly?
There's no chance.
I know. It's such a joke. So it was just like, and here's the other thing. Like, I don't want to, create a conspiracy out of nowhere here, but who's to say they didn't rig it so it stopped working? They was going to stop working.
They could have.
Because they obviously want, like,
they want to get in the house. That's why they have the GPS. So that's a good point, because now that the precedent is set, what if they did that?
Yeah. I mean, it's very easy. It's hey, we think this guy's a bad dude. We already got the warrant to
we all know this guy's bad.
Yeah.
Right. Let's just take him down.
And that's the thing. He did end up having meth. So this is another one where it's like in this guy's court case, if you're on a jury, because you know this from the PCP case that you brought up, a little bit earlier, is that how many of the jurors are you going to think, yeah, okay, well, maybe they didn't have the right way going about this, but the guy sold meth. He's a bad guy. So we should, but like, according to the government's own laws, this should really, all this evidence should be thrown out, which is also ridiculous because they did something illegal. They violated this guy's rights. Now, even if you do throw this evidence out and they can't, like, bring him in court for anything they found, but they all know he's a meth dealer. They know for sure now. So now he's just like a target. His life is ruined anyway. Now you could say, well, his life is ruined with meth. Yeah, I get it that doing meth isn't a good idea, but
it's not healthy.
Just because someone's doing a bad thing that they might ruin their life doesn't mean you have to guarantee it.
Right. I don't think it's a good thing to do meth, but if someone's using meth and not hurting anyone,
right.
I mean,
well, it's just like you might die by engaging in this stupid activity. That doesn't mean I can go and kill you.
Right. I mean, skydiving doesn't seem like a great idea to me. Climbing some of those cliffs doesn't seem like a great idea to me. If someone does it, should we lock them up?
Uh, uh, I don't know. Apparently,
Yeah. Not that our audience needs be
sure,
convinced of drug laws. It's just,
but it's another case where this is obviously doesn't have anything to do with guns, but it's an example of somewhere where they just railroad someone, and even though that they violated their own laws and everything and their own procedures and just completely screwed this up for this guy. Like this guy's done. He's got. I don't think he's got much of a shot
no.
because it's they find people that are easy to go after. And here's another thing: if this kind of happened, you know, the private world is different. If someone was committing a crime, and I didn't really know for sure, like say someone's beating their kids or something in their house, and I have a good idea, but I don't have any proof that he's doing, but I really know it in my gut. And I break into the guy's house and find him doing it, and I take his kids from him, do whatever I got to do. I think that would, you guessed right. So you did a good thing. But the issue is if you guess wrong and you jump in and the guy's not doing anything wrong, you would be liable for any damages you did there. And so that's going to make the individual in that case be real sure when they're going around potentially violating someone else's rights, because if they make a mistake, they're going to be held liable for it. Do we expect the police and courts to be held liable for if they mess up with this? Like, let's say the guy wasn't doing anything illegal, and they got this warrant and broke into his house and the barn and did all this other stuff. Like, that really stinks for that guy. That's not pleasant to have your house torn up by the police. And then, like we were saying before we started, talk about how it creates like sloppiness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
oh, you want me to talk?
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
No, I thought you were going to continue. No, I think it does. And again, this goes back to my experience on a jury, because on the stand, the DEA, the Philly PD narcotics unit kept saying, "Oh, my team was really bad at documenting things. We just weren't good at documenting things." They didn't have pictures of the one house they raided. They didn't have any video of the raids, any of the raids. They did about 7 of them that day. Had no video. They did what they call mobile surveillance, where they follow someone in a car. They had no pictures. They had no video. They had no documentation. They do stationary surveillance, where they'll sit outside someone's house, and they had very poor documentation, but no pictures, no video. And I believe that they do that. They get lazy. They don't get their evidence together because they know they're going to get convictions, and they know they're going to get guilty plea deals, plea bargains. But in my case, they didn't, and they had to go to court. And even so, I'm in the jury in deliberations trying to make these points that Agent Sampson can't go on the stand and say, "My bad." That doesn't, locking someone in prison for 30 years doesn't work like that. You don't get to just say, "My bad, I messed up, but I'm testifying today under oath that I saw him there." Well, yeah. If they didn't get a 97% conviction rate on drug cases, my guess is there'd be better documentation.
Yeah. Or if they actually had to be held accountable for making
these mistakes, right?
Right.
Yeah, and they what they were asking the jury to do is put people away on very flimsy. Now there was a lot of other evidence, but this was part of the case that they just weren't documenting, and admitted so on the stand, and admitted to changing testimony over the course of this whole thing. So, essentially he admitted to perjury. I've Googled his name. I haven't seen him charged. I don't know if he ever was. I doubt it.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold your breath for that one.
Yeah. I also, well, whatever. There was other things that bothered me. I don't want to get on that case. So anyway, I think that, yeah, they get lazy. When they get judges to do things like that, it makes them lazy. That's probably why we see a lot of cops pulling triggers at people, because just don't take chances, you know? You don't
Right.
really need to know that he has a gun. If he reaches for his waistband, we all get home safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the reason why we want the market competition to
So
be out
let's
there
talk
trying to
about
solve our
that for just
problems.
a second. I know we've had episodes on this before, but how do you think we could handle something like this without a government and police? Because you really don't want dangerous people running around with guns. I know, kind of putting you on the spot because we didn't talk about this beforehand, but one thing we've talked a lot about is insurance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, go ahead.
If you're a person that has shown that they are a danger to other people, then an insurance company might say, if you want to have coverage with us to protect you when something goes wrong for you, then either you are, I don't know how the policy would look exactly. I'm not an
We're doing this on
actuary.
the spot,
Right.
right? I
But it
mean,
would
but
be it would be something like, all right, if you have a gun, then your premiums are going to be really high because we think that you're kind of likely to do something dumb with it. So if you want us to protect you, it's going to be real expensive. Or they might say, if you want coverage, lose the gun.
and if that sounds far-fetched, look at car insurance. If you're getting a ton of speeding tickets, if you're racking up points on your license and you're getting in accidents, your insurance rates go way up. And what does everybody everybody knows that's a real problem when you get a ticket is, are my insurance rates going to go up? Nobody wants their insurance rates to go up.
Right.
Um,
And no one wants to lose insurance because if you lose insurance, especially when it's for providing you security,
you're now bearing that risk, all of it.
right. And so it's really, really not a good situation to be in. And I also just think that without the government creating all sorts of stupid laws that create criminals out of people that wouldn't otherwise be criminals, and just incentivize bad behavior because of that and because of all these other things, then I think we would not have as many of these issues to begin with anyway. Like government existence and everything it does creates like so many of these like downstream and secondary and tertiary problems
Mm-hmm.
that are not really obvious, but just like, well, one, just the destruction of the family. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that, harkening back to that, to the case of the kid that got kicked out of his house who shot his cousin later on, maybe he's just a bad egg and there's nothing the parents can do about it. But I know there's certain and many other situations where you look at broken homes and the kids' lives are kind of doomed, and you kind of know when they're little kids. You just see the situation and be like, man, it's gonna be a miracle if this kid doesn't end up like dead or in a prison cell.
Right.
So it's I think it would be there. The market would handle it much better, and just the incentive structures that the market produces. I think that you would just not have as many of these cases anyway.
Agreed.
So I don't know. That's all I really had on this kind of stuff. Just remember that the red flag laws are bad, and they're probably trying to bring them in, but don't think they're not working in parallel directions from a lot of different angles. And I think these two stories kind of highlight how they're finding ways to one, take guns from people that they shouldn't, and then two, find ways that are less than on the up and up to investigate and do searches and end up like actually charging people with these crimes. So it's just a nasty situation all the way around. So kind of be on the lookout for that kind of stuff, and then maybe if we identify it a little bit more, we can raise some attention to it. But it's going to be difficult because, like we said earlier, this Pennsylvania gun law was bipartisan. Everyone loved it. So Uh, it's it's a tough road to hoe. So,
Yeah, what's that tell you?
but yeah, if you're next time you're riding on your tractor with having your thoughts to yourself and you think of a way to solve that, make sure to tell everyone. So, Slappy, you have a free market success story?
No, do you?
No, the market is stupid and doesn't exist apparently.
True. Well, yeah.
I do have one actually a little bit.
Oh, sure. I was gonna say I googled GPS trackers. You can buy one anywhere from $345 to $39.99.
Oh, so I'm sure the government
Fleet management, 4G real-time GPS tracker. So if you want to put them on police cars, and if they take them off, you can accuse them of theft.
Here's the free market success story. The market will find, gives you the options of a variety of GPS units, tracking units, from ones that are cheap to ones that are more expensive. I'm sure the ones that are more expensive have more features and are better. But if you want to put it on a high risk target, meaning that they might, find it and take it from you and you don't get it back, or they destroy it somehow, then maybe you want the cheaper option.
Yeah, go with the $39.99 one.
Yeah, maybe for ones that are less risky for loss, you're going to spend more money on. But that's what the market does for you. It lets you make those decisions. So I like that. So with that, the show notes page again is mcflugel.com/174. We will link to the Philadelphia Inquirer article about the gun laws, and then also to the opinion of the judges on the case of Derek Huring versus the state of Indiana. I think they're both, especially reading the opinion of the judge, I think it's pretty interesting to read, because I actually think they did a piss poor job of justifying, because a lot of this stuff, it's like you kind of get the highlights of it and you're like, man, that's ridiculous. But then once you dig into the details, it's like, oh, okay, there's information that I wasn't expecting to get there. But I don't think this was the case at all here. I think it's just the cops and the courts working together to railroad a guy and just get what they wanted anyway, and just kind of screw what we're supposed to do. We know we can get away with it. So, and also check out libertymugs.com. Great for those Christmas gifts you give. It's great to give into libertarians who will love it, and also people who are not libertarian, because it'll be funny to have them. Give one of like if you have. I'm sure we all have teachers in our lives, friends and family. So get them like the thank a teacher mug.
Yeah,
I think it would be a great gesture.
Or it's Christmas time. People are spending more money than usual. You're already spending a lot this month. What's another $100?
Absolutely.
Buy the mug and show it to everybody.
Yeah. So, all right. I think that's it. Christmas is coming up soon. Can't believe it. But another couple of weeks. But It's not falling on a Monday, so we don't have to worry about adjusting our schedules too much.
That's true.
We usually figure that out like Sunday night.
Yeah, 10 o'clock Sunday night.
Oh, what are we gonna do tomorrow? I don't
know. You
got
a couple minutes.
We've had an episode every Monday night out since we've started this. So
yeah, we didn't miss a single one.
Nope. So rest assured, I think we'll keep chugging them out for you guys. So with that in mind, it helps us out if you leave a review on where you listen to your podcatchers, and share the podcast with family and friends. We do appreciate it, and that's the best way that you can help us to get what we do out there. So thanks for listening, and we will catch you next week.
Peace.